Hey guys, let's do a little battle report of a game that I played about a week ago. And I'm going to try to not edit this video, just record it and go. So without further ado, I played my good friend Josh, one of the best old Dominion players in the world. And this is his list at the top. He has an Archimandrite with a Consecrated Mitre devoted to Hazlia and Arcane 1. He also has Legionnaires and Bone Golems. The Bone Golems are the workhorse of Josh's army. Now, you're going to hear me say things like my Nords or Josh's OD because an individual player puts their style and the units they like to use, well, into the list that they run. So some people may not like using Bone Golems, but Josh has found immense success with Bone Golems. So he also has a Hierodeacon with Arcane 1, Legionnaires, and Karyatids. Josh also loves his Karyatids, and they are very effective for how he uses them. His Warlord is a Xhiliarch, that's so he can reach tier 4 for his OD tokens. Aventine Armor, Eternal Discipline, and Regalia 1. Praetorian Guard, which is the regiment that the Xhiliarch will be hanging out with. Legionnaires, and 2 Varangian guards. The Legionnaires in this list, of course, are required for OD. They mainly hang back and hold objective zones. The Varangian guard are his counterpunch. They're made to flank the Legionnaires, and then when my regiments get too close, the Varangian guard then charge outwards. And the Varangian guard are very powerful indeed. My list here at the bottom, I have Nords, 2,000 points. I have a Konungyr as my Warlord with the Raven Messenger and Tactical 1. Of course, I have the Raven Messenger banner with my Konungyr to radiate out a resolve of 5. And then I have 4 Bow Chosen, 4 Bow Chosen, 3 Bow Chosen, and a nice Jotnar. The Bow Chosen with the 3 stands is the one that the Konungyr hangs out in, which gives him his resolve of 5. My other... Oh, and the Ice Jotnar, of course, is just to come on and do a counterpunch. He has got significantly weaker due to his loss of Blood of the Einhar. Even though he got a points decrease, the Ice Jotnar still got nerfed. Now, when I use him, he does get his +1 from the blood in the recent update, so that was compensated for. But what was really missing is the rerolls. It's the flurry, and that really does hurt the Ice Jotnar. But the Ice Jotnar does have Cleave 3, so it's still a pretty dang good model. And the Ice Jotnar also lost the ability to cast spells twice, so he can't double dip into his spells anymore. I also have the Blooded with the Horn of the Hjoldgar. I think that gave my regiment that he's in. It's the one where if they roll ones to hit, it's the rule that where if they roll ones to hit with their volleys, they score an additional automatic hit. I forgot what the rule is called. I'm not going to look it up now during my stream since I'm not going to edit this. But that's what the rule does. He comes with 2 Stalkers, 3 Bow Chosen, and 1 Mountain Jotnar. I kind of like the Mountain Jotnar now. Before it was the Ice Jotnar, now it's the Mountain, because of the Mountain's increase to movement 7. As you can see, my list is light, heavy, and heavy light, with no mediums. So the way I play Nords is that I score early, and I try to hold on to that lead as long as possible. I have a list that I'm currently testing with players where I run 6 Mountain Jotnars and all Raiders or some sort of mix of various melee builds. And it's okay and it's fun, but it's not something I would ever take to top tables of any tournament against serious players that know what they're doing. The Blooded will be attached to one of the Stalkers to come onto the board early, to score early. And my Konungyr has a choice of hopping onto the other Stalkers if he needs to, because the Stalkers have the increased range over Bow Chosen. So, without further ado, let's hop on over to the game. So this is the table. Obviously, bird's eye view. And this is at the end of round 1. I basically rolled and got everything on the board. Here in the middle, you can see my cursor, right? Yes, you can. Here in the middle, my blooded with the Stalkers is inching forward towards this zone. Oh, got to mention, this mission is off balance, where you have 2 zones in the center. I have 2 friendly objective markers on my side of the table, and my opponent, Josh, has 2 objective markers on his side of the table. And you get points for killing the enemy markers, and you get points for holding the zones and for holding 2 zones. I believe it's 2 points each for the zones, and then another 2 points if you hold both zones. Did I have that over here? Yeah, here it is. Cool. Yep. So 4 victory points if you destroy the enemy objective markers, 2 victory points for each objective zone you're seizing, an additional 2 victory points if you're seizing both objectives, and 2 victory points if you kill the Warlord. So this does not reward you for killing regiments or characters, which means this is more of a take and hold kind of mission. It's not a mission where you try to wipe your opponent out, and missions like this are great for Nords. Okay, so with flank, both my Stalkers regiments came on the board, and with one of the automatic reinforcements, one of my bow chosen came on the board, and it would be with the Konungyr here on the right. I rolled 3 dice, and I got all 3 of my other bow chosen regiments on the board. My opponent has no light regiments, so we're going to go straight to the next round. At the end of round 2, I have moved up in position, and my opponent, Josh, brought 2 of his characters on, probably the Archimandrite and the Hierodeacon here, and he has a weird formation with his regiments. I know you're supposed to put the regiment in the center and the back, but he puts them in the side. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter to me. I know that's not in the rules, but once again, don't bother me. Don't care. That's up to him. So I now control both zones at the end of round 2, which means I'm going to score 6 points. I'm already ahead by 6, which is great. This is how you want people to play against Nords. This was better when Bow Chosen had 16-inch range, and you could actually force the opponent to make bad decisions, but it's a little harder to play this style. It's just a little harder to play Nords overall. It's just how it is after the Bow Chosen rebalancing. Okay, that's pretty much it. Nothing more to really talk about when it comes to the end of round 2. I'm not going to keep track of his devil points here. He levels up and gets his devil points. It's actually going to matter later on. There's a very pivotal point where I have to make a decision. Well, we'll get to that when I get to it. So this is just a picture at the end of round 2 where I have my Stalkers. I'm sorry, I have my Bow Chosen here on this hill. And I know the angle may not show it, but this stand's corner is actually on the hill. So all 3 stands, or all 4 stands, would have size 3 or elevation 3 to fire over my regiments here. And my plan is to just hold this spot. So when he comes to charge me, I can shoot at him from the rear and try to hold off his charges as much as possible. So this is now during the course of round 3. He brings on his Xhiliarch with Praetorian Guard, and I'm able to fire on them with my Stalkers here because of the 16-inch range, and I think I do maybe 1 point of damage to the Praetorian Guard. My Bow Chosen over here on top of this water feature, and there is a little bit of the water sticking out in front of me, so if he charges me, he won't get... It's hindering in water, so his clash will be lower, and he won't get any sort of impacts or inspiring rule because the water is hindering. Anyway, this unit of Bow Chosen Fire on the Praetorian Guard. And I believe... Or did I fire on the statue? I think I fired on the statue. Actually, I fired on the statue. And I did 3 1s and a bunch of hits. And I did the statue 1 point of damage. My Stalkers here, with my Blooded, were able to fire onto his Legionnaires that have moved onto the table. And his Legionnaires, his 3rd Legionnaires, moved in front of his Hierodeacon and Archimandrite to block shots, which is what they're doing. And I hit with this many dice here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and did 4 wounds, killing one of his Legionnaire stands over here. So this is the end of round 3. My opponent has now brought his Bone Golems on. He brought his Karyatids over here in the back. And he brought his Legionnaires here to block his other Legionnaires. His 2 Legionnaires in the back did not move forward. And as you can see here, I'm starting to make a slight error where I'm moving forward with my regiment. See it? They're kind of like staggered out. Oh, I also brought my Mountain Jotnar and Ice Jotnar during round 3. But anyway, back to the staggering. I moved my Bow Chosen forward because of the 14-inch range to kind of like force him to come towards me. But my Stalkers are all also coming up to get some pot shots. And those pot shots are not required. This staggering of my lines and decreasing the charge range my opponent needs is not going to be good for me in the future. But yes, I also rolled... I'm sorry, I have my Blooded on the board, and my Blooded is my Warlord. He's the Warlord I take for all my Nord matches. So on round 3, I get 2 heavies on automatically. I have my Mountain here, holding my flank, and I have my Ice in the center. My Ice in the center is to kind of charge either to the left or to the right, depending where my lines need help. And the Mountain is just shoring up my weak flank here on the left, because there's all this space due to off balance. So I also now score another 6. So I believe at this point here on the dice, you can see here the little 6s, I'm up by 12. It's a lot, right? I'm up by 12, yeah. So now we're going to go into round 4. And oh, this was still in round 3. Sorry, I took a picture after the fact. But his Karyatids came on the board, and then with their second action fired and did 3 wounds to my Bow Chosen here. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Oh, and my Konungyr hopped over from the Bow Chosen here into the Stalkers here. And then my Stalkers reformed, because when you seek a new escort, the stand you displace goes in the back rank. But when the Stalkers activated, I moved up, or I just reformed, or either way, this is the correct formation, because I needed the medium stand of the Konungyr here to be on the objective zone. Moving on! Oh no, he hopped from this one here on the right. That's what it was. Is that what happened? Ah, yes, he was here on the right. Oh, they actually killed the stand. Oh. So my Konungyr was preparing. Okay, here's what's happening. My Konungyr hopped from this Bow Chosen regiment on the right into the Stalkers, so his banner radius could extend farther out to the center of the battlefield. That's what it was. But he also wants to stay on the objective marker. And the Karyatids, they just moved on the battlefield. And just by moving on the battlefield and shooting, they actually did, what was this, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage. to my Bow Chosen. So my Bow Chosen took a pounding from the Karyatids. So now we're moving on to round. Whoops. My bad on that. Now we're moving on to the end of 1, end of 2, end of 3. Now we're moving on to round 4. Right here. Where the Bow Chosen activate first. Because I know that the Karyatids are going to kill them over time anyway. So my Bow Chosen here fire on the Praetorians and the Xhiliarch. I'm trying to kill the Xhiliarch as fast as I can before he gets to my lines and start messing me up. And I rolled all these 1s for the piercing shots and all these hits. And don't worry about the dice with the numbers for the hits. Just the number of dice was the number of hits I got. And I did 7 wounds total to the Praetorian Guard, killing a stand and moving a dice over. Here's what happened. His Praetorian Guard activated and charged my Bow Chosen here. But the charging, of course, doesn't allow him to have any clashing because he had to move and then charge, right? And once he got into combat, my Bow Chosen here in the back that are on the hill, see the very tip of this stand is on the hill? I was able to fire the 14 inches onto his Praetorian and Xhiliarch right here. And maybe I only got 3 stands, I don't know. But because of my size 3, I was able to fire over my Bow Chosen over here and kill the Praetorian Guard. I did 10 wounds, which eliminated the rest of the wounds, and then killed the Xhiliarch. Or was it? See, I don't remember. I think maybe he was just in front of them. But either way, my Bow Chosen here were able to fire onto them and then wipe them out. That's all that matters. His Karyatids activated. They took aim and fired and nearly wiped out my Bow Chosen over here. My Bow Chosen are now down to 4 wounds. Because remember, you count the wounds up. Here on the right, the Bone Golems moved and then charged, and their impact hits did 3 damage. So my Bow Chosen are now kind of bleeding on the battlefield a little bit. My Stalkers decided to take aim and fire onto the Bone Golems right here. And all of the shooting from my Stalkers onto the Bone Golems did 3 wounds. So, Bone Golems taking some damage. His front line of the 1 Legionnaire regiment here on the left and the 1 Legionnaire regiment on the right moved and then charged into me, locking me up. Then I think this was where I made the mistake. Oh, no, it wasn't. Basically, due to clashing, as you see all these cards are drawn, I didn't keep track of who was fighting who. I wasn't able to really scratch this regiment here on the right, but I was able to do a lot of damage over here and bring this regiment of Legionnaires down to whatever they're at. I can't see their dice. But that was due to the clashing. I had to split my attacks. I believe these 3 stands here went on the regiment to the left, and this 1 stand had to go to the regiment on the right, and then nothing happened to the regiment on the right. My Bow Chosen activated, immediately took wounds from the Aura of Death, killed 1 stand and put 4 wounds over here. And then when my Bow Chosen clashed, I did 1 wound to his Bone Golems, which was, I think, enough just to kill 1 Bone Golem. I'm sorry, it's not a 1, it's a 6. Actually, did 6 wounds. He rolled horribly. He rolled really bad, and he lost 1 Bone Golem. This is what the battlefield looks like at the end of round 4. I score both objective zones again, netting me some more dice here. And I did kill a Xhiliarch, which was his Warlord. So I had 20 points. He had 0, and I had 20. 6, 12, 18 plus 2. It was 20. So yes, folks. At the end of round 4, I'm up by 20 points. Does that mean I'm going to win the game? Not necessarily. Something does happen later on that is pretty miraculous, but we'll get to that when we get to that. My Ice Jotnar moved up and is ready to countercharge. And my Mountain Jotnar is now, what he's doing is he's trying to block my opponent from getting on this objective zone. So if his Varangian Guard charge the Mountain Jotnar, if they charge in the front, it's going to be hard for him to get maximum stands on the zone. And if he charges on the side, he won't be on this objective zone for one round. So yes, the Mountain Jotnar is being sacrificial here to protect my Bowchosen and my Stalkers and my Blooded. Because Nords have to score early and then hold on to that scoring as long as possible. Also, Nord melee into OD is not good, which is fine. If that's a proper design of the game, that's fine. If a direct... Here's the thing. People may not understand this. A direct counter to OD is ranged. That's how it should be. And a direct counter to Nords is melee with OD. See how that works? So we have 2 counters here. I'm trying to shoot him off the board as much as I can, and he wants to melee me off the board as much as he can. Anyway, moving on. We're now going to round 5. And this is where it happens. His Varangian Guard are the first to activate. He needs a 2+ to charge. He rolls a 1. He has a banner. And he rolls another 1. And that was the turning point of the game. This pretty much guaranteed my victory. Pretty much guaranteed it. If he would have made that charge, the game would have been more even. And he would have just plowed through my left flank. And there would be nothing I can do about it. This 265-point Varangian Guard unit, whatever it is, will just destroy 1,000 points worth of Nords in melee. That's how fragile Nords are. And Nords are not cannons. There's no cannon to this army. To those of you looking to play Nords, you're looking to score early and then like a candle with a short wick just burn out. So luckily he didn't roll to make the charge, which wouldn't have guaranteed him the win, but it would have made him easier to get the win in the long run, in the late game. Because there's still like 5 rounds left. I think we're in round 5 now, right? Yeah. And OD excel in the late game. Here's where I make a mistake. I had put my Blooded, second card from the top. So stupid. And I challenged his, I think this is the Archimandrite or Hierodeacon, whichever one. You OD nerds will tell me, but I'm just going to call it the Hierodeacon for now. This is where I challenged his Hierodeacon to a fight, and then my opponent's like, bro. Josh is like, Diego, you're retarded. I'm like, what are you talking about? These are 2 different regiments. The one on the left and the one on the right. And I was like, oh. So then he just like refuses the duel, and then nothing happens. Because I believe, what was it? I think his regiment was broken or something along those lines. I was trying to wait a second. We got that wrong. I could have challenged him. You don't have to be in contact, the models, to challenge him. But when he said these are 2 different regiments, you can't challenge this regiment, I just kind of like went with it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, I can't. It just occurred to me now I could. Because it doesn't matter the distance between the 2 characters that are fighting. You can challenge them. So I challenged him to a duel, and then we agreed incorrectly that the duel couldn't happen, so then I just moved on. So yeah, there you go. A major error on my part. Oh, Josh. You're killing me here, bro. And you know what? I'm killing myself even more. So, moving on from that travesty. Because his Varangian Guard failed the charge, my Mountain Jotnar charged his Legionnaires with his character in the back. Probably the Archimandrite in the back. I wanted to charge in a way where if he were to charge with the Varangian Guard, okay, he would have to then have his his whole regiment kind of wheel out facing me like this, right? So my Mountain Jotnar charged in and did 5 damage. Didn't kill the Legionnaires. My single stand of Bow Chosen here in the back fired into the Legionnaires over here and did 1 wound, killing a stand. And it looks like I did a clash action here. I must have passed it over, but my clash action killed the stand here on the left. It maybe did a wound or 2 to the regiment on the right. His Varangian Guard here on the right tried to go for a long charge and failed. So that wasn't a 2+ charge he needed to make. It was a lot less than that. I think he needed a 6 or something, but he failed the charge. And his regiment is just kind of sitting out there in the wind. My Bow Chosen that were on the hill moved forward so they can lay in as many shots as they could onto the regiment, the Legionnaires that were holding my Stalkers here on the front. Because I did not want my Blooded to die. I need him alive to hold this point. So I fired 4 piercing shots and a bunch of hits and did 7 wounds to that regiment, killing it. My Stalkers charged the Bone Golems in their flank just to make room for my Ice Jotnar to charge the Varangian Guard. My Ice Jotnar did, I think, I didn't write it down. Did 9 wounds, I think, because he had 4 stands here and there's 3 dice here. So I must have done 9 wounds with the Ice Jotnar. The Cleave 3 is pretty good. The Stalkers here on the right are just kind of making room, and that's pretty much it. Just punching the Bone Golems on the side, not doing much damage to them. And then I had to make a decision here. Oh, before I forget, I did want to point this out. There's a reason why I took a picture here. This picture here. This was right before... Sorry. This was the start of round 5. I mean, this picture is the end of round 4 and the start of round 5. And Josh was 1 token away from reaching tier 3 with the OD. In this picture, my Bow Chosen here in the back, it was one of these. Yeah, it was that one. It's a little out of turn, but before round 5 started, my Bow Chosen here decided not to shoot anything, because if I were to kill a single stand, he would then reach tier 3, and because he had the Xhiliarch, he would be then tier 4. Or he would get closer to being tier 4. So this was the first time I've ever played the game where I took a unit and then did no shooting with it, because I did not want him to reach tier 3. Because if he reached tier 3, he would then be always inspired with his Varangian Guard. But luckily for me, his Varangian Guard failed the charge anyway. So I planned for him to not get his tier 3 always inspired, so he wouldn't one-shot my giant. But he failed the charge either way. But that was the reason why I took that one picture, was to show that I wasn't shooting at anything, because I didn't want him to get an extra elemental token. Anyway, the point of this picture over here is that my Bow Chosen moved up. And you may be wondering, why are your Bow Chosen moving up to get into contact with the Varangian Guard? Aha! Good thing you should ask. Well, on a side note, the Bow Chosen here fired on the Legionnaires that had the Archimandrite or whatever over here. 3 piercing hits, 5 shots, doing them 6 damage. So it killed them. But remember, Nords score early, score as much, and hold that score as long as possible. So my Bow Chosen are just moving up, blocking him completely from getting onto the circle, onto the zone. That's why I moved them up. So if he were to charge my Bow Chosen, he wouldn't score at all. See, the stand on the left here is just kind of hard to see, but if he were to line up on the flank, which he couldn't here, but if he tried to line up on the flank, he would be just off the zone. So I am using everything I can to block him from scoring. Also, on a side note, because I'd moved my Bow Chosen up, my Mountain Jotnar now cannot be charged because he would have to wheel, and if he wheels, the regiment would hit my Bow Chosen, meaning that my Mountain Jotnar could not be charged. Meaning that when he does charge my Bow Chosen, my Mountain Jotnar can then just change facing and then charge his Varangian Guard. So when he slaughters my Bow Chosen, my Mountain Jotnar will hold his Varangian Guard in place so he can't get on the point. But he's OD. He can just leave combat anyway and not suffer any consequences for it, I don't think. Like just reform or whatever. Fallback is what it is. I think he just automatically takes D6 wounds. Who cares? But depending on the way he's facing, he'd have to move back, not forward. So this configuration here is to keep the Varangian Guard off this zone as long as possible. And if I have to, I would take my Blooded and move him over here just to block a Varangian charge on turn 7 or 8 or something. The Bone Golems activate and finally kill my Bow Chosen over here. I think maybe my Bow Chosen... No, my Bow Chosen activated, and the Aura of Death finally killed them. So they're dead. They're out. And I believe this might be the end of the game. Let me see. Yes. This is the end of the game. This is the end of round 5. Where I score another 2. I score... I think he has 2 stands here. 2 stands here. 1, 5. I think we're even here. What is it? He has 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I still have this one. So I have more here. So I score another 6 points. And this is where we decide to call the game. Because his Varangian Guard here on the left failed to charge, he could have kept playing, but I think the store was also, the hours were up. So we had to end the game. But his Karyatids did work, shooting my regiments up. And his Varangian Guard do work once they get into combat with me. But for the 30th time this game, I have to say that his Varangian Guard on the left rolled a 1 twice, which allowed me to get good positioning. Now, to be fair, if he would have made that charge, he would have locked up my mountain, maybe killed the mountain. I think he would have probably killed the mountain. And then my Bow Chosen would have had to have angled on the side. Not charged him, but just angled on the side and then moved to keep him off the zone. So I am so far up ahead in points right now. I think I'm at like 26, I believe. That we're starting turn 6 now. He'd have to score turn 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's the thing. You see, the thing about OD, if he manages to... If I didn't block this left flank well enough, if he manages to get a medium stand on the zone, like on turn 6, and his Varangian Guard over here on the right have a good chance of chopping up my Ice Jotnar. Oh, I remember what we did. We also did this. We just played the start of round 6. We ordered our decks. I won the Supremacy roll. My first regiment was the Ice Jotnar, and he just destroyed 2 stands, and that kind of sealed it also. That's what it was. I remember now. Yep, that's what it was. So I know, guys, I make this look easy. It's not playing Nords. You have to know what you're doing down to an inch, what every regiment's job is. Now, for instance, the Fenrir got a nerf by like 20 points. I would never put a Fenrir in my list ever again. That's not going to happen. Never again. There's nothing that regiment does to Nords that any other regiment that I can field will do for me for scoring and flanking, etc., right? So every single regiment in my list has a very specific job. And it's not as herder, brain void, simple as just take ranged. because you can go ahead and take all this range you like. I guarantee you're going to get curb stomped by people if you don't understand how scoring works. Conquest is about scoring if you're playing with Nords. Maybe with other armies, it's not that important because you just steamroll people or hold things early. If you're city-states, you can just drool on yourself, move forward, and deny scoring. I mean, there are other armies out there for people who don't want to challenge. But if you're a masochist for some reason and you want to challenge and you're playing Nords, you have to understand every single scenario. You have to understand how the scoring works. Just that simple act I did earlier of moving my bow chosen up to start shooting on this marker here on turn 3. It wasn't to kill the marker. I would not kill that marker over 3 turns because the Karyatids are here. But that was a psychological issue for my opponent. Now he had to deal with that regiment. So he moved his Praetorian and Xhiliarch up to deal with that regiment. He moved his Karyatids up to shoot that regiment. It was to take resources away from his regiment because I was distracting him so I can score on the zones. And every movement here on the left was done to keep this zone mine for as long as possible. Now, I've played games where I take more Mountain Jotnars, more Huskarls, more Valkyries, and they're fun. But you do not go up by like 20 points and then hold on to it. You might go up by 6, maybe 4, maybe 3, if you take a light regiment early on and you score a thing. But then once you start meeting with opponents, mediums and heavies, it's done. You're fighting an uphill battle. You're fighting a losing war. Anyway, hope you guys got something out of this. If you have any questions about this battle report, let me know in the comment section. Hit me up on Discord in the Nord channel to chat about it, sure. And don't forget to join my Patreon. Also, lastly, because of Warhammer 40,000 released its 10th edition game, and I've taken on the mantle of organizing events at my local gaming store, my time has been pretty much crammed in because of 40k 10th edition. So I am not shying away from Conquest content. I just have less time right now to do it. But in the near future, I'm going to get back to releasing constant Conquest content. I have a second battle report with this same list that I will release tomorrow morning. Same format, no editing, because I have to do league stuff for my store or whatever. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And once again, join my Patreon. Throw me some money. Times are tight. And if you want to have me create more Conquest content, money is a good incentive. All right. Thank you all. Peace out.